Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres stepped off the transport helicopter onto the tarmac of Naval Base, her boots hitting the concrete with quiet authority. The morning sun glinted off her polished insignia, reflecting a rank few at the base had expected to see in person. Her arrival had been whispered about for weeks, the subject of hushed conversations among both officers and enlisted personnel. "Another rotation," someone muttered. "Heard she's different." The words carried doubt, the sort of doubt Maya had learned to anticipate in her career. She wasn't new to skepticism, nor to being underestimated. Behind the polished smiles of the base's gate guards and the routine hum of the helicopter rotors, Maya felt the familiar tug of eyes on her. Some gazed with curiosity, others with skepticism, and a few with something resembling quiet admiration that they themselves hadn't yet acknowledged. She didn't rush. She never had to. Each movement, measured and deliberate, conveyed an unspoken message. She belonged here, regardless of whether anyone had expected it. As she walked toward the administrative area, a tall, broad-shouldered man in Navy SEAL fatigues approached, a crooked grin playing across his face. Chief Petty Officer Blake Rudd, infamous for his sharp humor and even sharper sarcasm, didn't even wait to introduce himself. "Careful, ma'am," he said loudly, so the few nearby officers could hear. "Don't trip over your fancy rank insignia." The laugh that followed was meant to be jovial, but the edge in it was unmistakable. He didn't even glance at her, assuming she would either laugh along or be intimidated. Maya paused for only a heartbeat, studying him. Her dark brown eyes, calm yet piercing, met his for the briefest moment, and she offered a slight nod, a gesture polite enough to acknowledge him but firm enough to assert her presence. Then she continued walking, unshaken. Rudd's grin faltered for a split second. He wasn't used to his jokes landing flat. Usually, even a rolled eye or a tight-lipped frown was enough to confirm his dominance in the room. Maya's unflinching composure subtly shifted the dynamics. It was the first small victory, one he wouldn't admit. Inside the base's administrative building, the atmosphere was a mixture of routine efficiency and quiet tension. Officers hurried past, carrying tablets and reports, while enlisted personnel moved through the hallways like clockwork, their cadence almost ceremonial. Maya's presence seemed to ripple through the space, drawing eyes that tried to look away but couldn't. She moved past them with purposeful strides, greeting the officer at the reception desk with a polite nod. "Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres reporting for duty," she said, her voice steady, confident, but not loud. It carried enough authority to halt conversations without needing to raise her tone. She was led to her temporary quarters, a modest office overlooking the base's training grounds. The room was unassuming, but Maya didn't need luxury. She needed functionality. On her desk lay neatly stacked reports, personnel rosters, and operational manuals, enough to occupy her mind while she assessed the base's strengths and weaknesses. She picked up a folder labeled Special Operations Readiness, flipping through it with meticulous attention. As she scanned the document, her mind didn't just read the lines. It analyzed, compared, and mentally simulated scenarios she might face over the coming weeks. Meanwhile, word of her arrival spread quickly. Rudd, never one to miss an opportunity for commentary, leaned against a railing overlooking the base training yard. "They're sending a woman to lead this rotation," he said to a small group of SEALs standing near him. "Think she'll survive the first week without crying over paperwork?" Laughter erupted, half-hearted from some, forced from others. But the joke, though meant to diminish her, carried the opposite effect. It drew attention. Soon the rumor mill buzzed with her name. "Lieutenant Commander Torres, heard she's sharp, but are we ready for her?" Some doubted, some speculated, and some, curiously, hoped she would prove them wrong. Maya's first meeting with the base commander was scheduled for late morning. She entered the office with calm precision, observing every detail: the placement of chairs, the slight tension in the air, the flicker of expectation in the commander's eyes. Rear Admiral Jonathan Hayes, a veteran of decades in naval operations, greeted her with a firm handshake. "Lieutenant Commander Torres," he said, "I've heard impressive things about your career, but it's a test of leadership, not just accolades. Are you ready?" Maya's gaze remained steady. "Sir, I am ready. My goal is to ensure the base operates at its peak, and I intend to lead by example, not by title." Hayes studied her for a moment, then nodded. He had seen countless officers claim competence but falter under pressure. Something about Maya's quiet confidence suggested she was not one of them. Her initial day on base involved observing personnel in training exercises, reviewing operational logs, and familiarizing herself with the SEAL teams. She noticed patterns others missed: inefficiencies in scheduling, redundant drills, and communication gaps between teams. While her demeanor was calm and approachable, her mind was calculating, always anticipating potential complications. Every glance, every movement, every interaction was logged in her mental catalog. Maya was not there to merely participate. She was there to lead, to challenge norms, and to ensure nothing less than excellence. By afternoon, Maya had her first encounter with Rudd in the field. The team was running a standard tactical drill, and she observed quietly from a distance. Rudd, noticing her presence, called out with mock enthusiasm, "Lieutenant Commander, I hope you brought your expert guidance." A few of the younger SEALs laughed, some nervously, unsure if they should follow his lead. Maya didn't react outwardly, but internally she noted his bravado. This was typical behavior, a test disguised as humor. She would answer in her own time, not with words but with action. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the training ground, Maya walked alone along the perimeter, reflecting on her first hours at the base. She had expected skepticism. She had even anticipated subtle challenges. What she hadn't anticipated was the mixture of curiosity and quiet admiration creeping into corners she hadn't even noticed. Some personnel were watching her more closely than they realized, weighing each decision she made. The seeds of respect, though unspoken, had begun to germinate, and somewhere in the back of her mind she smiled, for this was only the beginning. By the end of her first day, Maya had made no speeches, issued no commands, and won no visible accolades. Yet the base felt different somehow, as if the air itself had shifted. Rudd, sitting in the mess hall later, muttered under his breath, "Who is she really?" Maya Torres had arrived quietly, but her presence promised change, and the first ripple had already begun. The morning air at Naval Base was crisp and carried the faint tang of salt from the nearby coast. Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres arrived early, as was her custom, walking through the compound with the same quiet confidence she had exhibited the day before. While most personnel were just beginning to shake off sleep, she was already reviewing the operational schedules, cross-referencing team readiness reports, and mentally preparing for the series of drills she planned to observe that day. Every movement she made was deliberate, every glance calculated. There was no hurry, yet no hesitation. Word of her arrival had traveled fast. By now, Rudd and his circle of SEALs had become the unofficial observers of her every action. Some followed subtly, attempting to analyze her tactics and leadership style, while others simply waited for a moment of weakness, a mistake that would give them a reason to justify the jokes they had spread the previous day. But Maya did not stumble. She moved with quiet assurance, her presence commanding attention even when she did not speak. Her first stop was the training yard, where a group of SEALs were preparing for a routine tactical drill. She observed from the sidelines, arms crossed, noting the timing of maneuvers, communication breakdowns, and minor inefficiencies that would escape the notice of a casual observer. Her eyes lingered on Rudd, who was demonstrating an advanced maneuver with sharp precision, a smirk still playing across his face as though he were performing not for the drill but for her scrutiny. "Lieutenant Commander," he called out suddenly with a tone that was almost teasing, "hope you brought your expert eyes. Don't want you missing any of my brilliant moves." A few younger team members laughed nervously, unsure if this was truly humor or a subtle challenge to her authority. Maya didn't react. She simply made a note in her mental log. Rudd relied on bravado, deflection, and subtle intimidation to assert control. As the drill began, Maya's observations became more critical. She noticed that while Rudd executed maneuvers with skill, his communication with the team was inconsistent. Team members hesitated, sometimes duplicating movements unnecessarily. A minor delay in one sector caused ripple effects, and though it wasn't catastrophic, it highlighted an area for improvement. Maya filed the observation internally, understanding that her role wasn't to criticize immediately, but to allow the team to demonstrate their approach before she subtly corrected it. The drill progressed, and the tension between Maya and Rudd became palpable. Rudd, sensing the scrutiny, intensified his display, barking orders with a sharpness that bordered on aggressive. He challenged Maya openly. "You sure that's how you'd handle it, ma'am?" His voice carried over the comms, sharp and direct. The SEALs paused for a fraction of a second, glancing between their leader and the newcomer. The unspoken tension was unmistakable, a test disguised as sarcasm. Maya responded calmly, her voice steady and precise. "Based on the current formation and timing, I would recommend a small adjustment here, and then synchronize with Sector Alpha for improved efficiency." She pointed to the team's positioning, highlighting a subtle misalignment. The moment her words landed, the drill immediately flowed smoother. Movements became synchronized, commands clear, and the previous hesitation disappeared. The team executed the sequence flawlessly, and even Rudd couldn't help but acknowledge the improvement, though he kept his pride carefully guarded. After the drill, the SEALs dispersed, some quietly discussing the adjustment Maya had suggested. Rudd, still masked in bravado, muttered under his breath but didn't argue. Maya walked among the team, making brief observations, offering small nods of approval but no fanfare. She didn't seek recognition. She simply ensured the unit performed at its best. That approach, subtle yet effective, began to chip away at the doubt that had surrounded her arrival. By late morning, Maya moved to the operational planning room, where she began analyzing past mission reports. The patterns were clear. Small inefficiencies had cost valuable time in previous drills, minor miscommunications had resulted in preventable injuries, and strategic opportunities had been missed repeatedly due to hesitation or overconfidence. Maya began compiling a mental plan for gradual improvements, changes that would elevate the base's performance without undermining the existing command structure. Her presence in the planning room did not go unnoticed. A few junior officers whispered in corners, discussing her methods and precision. "She doesn't just watch," one murmured. "She sees everything." The phrase echoed through the room like an undercurrent, gaining momentum with each passing hour. Maya remained unaware of these whispers, focused solely on the task at hand. Observation, analysis, and quiet action were her tools, not confrontation or dramatics. Rudd, growing impatient with the subtle challenge to his authority, decided to escalate the test. During a simulated navigation exercise, he deliberately attempted to override a minor adjustment Maya recommended. "I know my way around these drills," he said with a smirk. "You're welcome to observe, but leave the decisions to experience." Maya didn't flinch. She allowed the first attempt to proceed, noting the delay it caused. When the sequence faltered slightly, she calmly intervened. "Adjust the timing here and coordinate with Sector Delta immediately. That will maintain momentum and prevent misalignment." The team executed her instructions without hesitation, correcting the error smoothly. Even Rudd, whose pride was bruised, could not argue with the result. Maya's calm and precise approach had earned a quiet, grudging respect, though he would not admit it openly. Other SEALs began to murmur among themselves, some nervously, some admiringly, noting her capability. She had not demanded compliance, she had earned it. By midday, Maya's influence had begun to ripple quietly through the base. Officers and enlisted personnel alike noticed the subtle changes. Communications were smoother, drills were more efficient, and the air of quiet tension had begun to shift toward cautious optimism. Some doubted themselves, wondering if they had underestimated her. Others were inspired, recognizing that her calm and analytical approach might just be what the base needed to achieve excellence. During lunch, Maya dined alone in the mess hall, though she was aware of the glances and whispers around her. She didn't seek conversation. Her focus remained on strategy and observation. Rudd sat at a nearby table with a few colleagues, muttering under his breath about her presence, attempting to maintain his edge. Yet even he found himself watching her, noting her efficiency, her calm demeanor, and the subtle authority she carried without ever raising her voice. As the afternoon approached, Maya conducted of the base facilities, reviewing equipment readiness, team schedules, and logistical details. Every corner, every personnel interaction, was an opportunity for her to observe patterns, strengths, and weaknesses. By the time she returned to her office, Maya had mentally mapped the dynamics of the entire base, the unspoken hierarchies, and the subtle tests of loyalty and competence that define daily life on. By the end of her second full day, Maya had made no formal announcements, issued no direct orders, and yet the base felt subtly altered. Where there had been doubt and casual mockery, there was now cautious curiosity, and for a few, grudging respect. Rudd, though still maintaining his outward bravado, had begun to adjust his posture, unconsciously testing his assumptions about her. Maya's quiet challenge had begun to take root, not through confrontation or loud declaration, but through competence, calm authority, and the undeniable clarity of action. As she reviewed the day's notes late into the evening, Maya allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. She understood the challenges ahead. Skepticism, arrogance, and resistance were natural in a male-dominated environment, especially when faced with a woman who refused to conform to expectations. Yet she was prepared. Her strategy was simple: observe, analyze, act with precision, and let results speak louder than words. She didn't need anyone's approval. She needed their attention, and she already had it. With one last glance at the tactical map sprawled across her desk, Maya closed her eyes briefly, breathing in the quiet hum of the base. The seeds of change had been planted. The silent challenge had begun, and no one, not even Rudd, would remain the same. The morning fog rolled over Naval Base, casting long shadows across the training yard. Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres arrived earlier than usual, her dark eyes scanning the field with meticulous attention. Today wasn't just another observation day. Today, the SEAL team would perform a full tactical simulation, a high-pressure exercise designed to test decision-making under stress. For Maya, this wasn't merely a drill. It was the first real opportunity to see how the men she had quietly assessed would respond to leadership under pressure. From the moment the team assembled, the tension was palpable. Chief Petty Officer Blake Rudd stood tall at the front, his jaw tight, a smirk hiding the unease beneath. He was well aware of Maya's reputation, yet he masked it with sarcasm. "All right, folks," he said, voice loud enough for the gathered team to hear. "Keep an eye on our observer. She might try to tell you how to do your job, but let's see if she survives this one first." Laughter erupted from some of the younger SEALs, though it was nervous, uncertain. Maya simply stood silently, arms folded, watching. The drill began. It was a complex exercise simulating a hostile boarding scenario at sea, with multiple objectives, obstacles, and time-sensitive decisions. Maya observed quietly, her mind cataloging every movement, every hesitation, and every communication error. The first 5 minutes were predictable: minor miscommunications, small lapses in timing, and hesitations when the team encountered unexpected variables. Rudd barked orders, his tone sharp, almost defensive, as though proving a point to her. "You sure about that call, ma'am?" Rudd's voice cut through the comms channel, loaded with sarcasm. A few of the younger team members glanced at Maya, unsure how to respond. The unspoken tension hung in the air like electricity. The test was clear. Would she falter under pressure, or would her calm confidence hold? Maya responded calmly, her voice steady and precise. "Adjust the perimeter coverage by 2 degrees clockwise. Sector Bravo should synchronize with Alpha immediately. Maintain radio silence unless absolutely necessary." Her instructions were technical, precise, and efficient, delivered without condescension, without flair, but with undeniable authority. The team executed her recommendations, and the first signs of improvement appeared almost immediately. Rudd's smirk faltered, replaced by subtle surprise. His mind, trained for battlefield improvisation, was unprepared for her measured, analytical approach. He attempted to assert dominance, issuing an alternative command to override her suggestion. Maya didn't react outwardly. Instead, she allowed the maneuver to unfold. The team hesitated for a moment, a tiny ripple of confusion, and then executed her plan instead, following her instructions with flawless precision. Even Rudd, for all his bravado, couldn't dispute the outcome. The simulation intensified. Smoke filled the air, alarms rang, and stress levels rose. A minor accident occurred when a team member slipped on wet terrain, twisting his ankle. Training protocols required immediate stabilization and extraction. Without hesitation, Maya directed medics and team members with calm authority. Secure the perimeter. Delta Team, assist with patient extraction. Alpha, cover the blind spots. Every command was crisp, deliberate, and immediately effective. In minutes, the injured SEAL was stabilized and out of danger, the simulation continuing without major disruption. As the exercise progressed, the team's confidence grew under her quiet guidance. Even those who had doubted her abilities began following her lead instinctively. Maya's presence wasn't loud or overbearing. It was subtle, precise, and unmistakable. Rudd, observing closely, felt the stirrings of genuine respect, though he refused to admit it to anyone. For the first time, his usual attempts to undermine her authority failed. Every challenge she faced was met not with defiance, but with flawless execution. By mid-morning, the drill reached its climax, a simulated breach and hostage recovery. Stress levels skyrocketed, and the SEALs were forced to make split-second decisions under the pressure of time and simulated danger. Maya's instructions were methodical, guiding the team step by step, while allowing them autonomy to adapt as conditions changed. The result was seamless coordination, a rare achievement in a team that often relied on instinct over planning. Observers from other divisions murmured in disbelief. Rudd's initial skepticism had transformed into a reluctant acknowledgement. Maya's calm, precise authority had turned the simulation from a test into a demonstration of what disciplined leadership could achieve. Yet he still resisted openly conceding her competence. Instead, he muttered under his breath, loud enough for a few others to hear, "She's good, but this is just a drill. Let's see how she performs under real pressure." The challenge was clear, but Maya paid it no mind. After the exercise, the team gathered for debriefing. Maya stepped forward, her voice calm, measured, and confident. She provided constructive feedback, highlighting what had gone well and where slight improvements could enhance efficiency. Her analysis was precise, evidence-based, and delivered without condescension. The SEALs listened attentively. Even Rudd, who resisted outwardly, found himself nodding at her points. Her feedback was respected not because of rank alone, but because it was undeniably correct. In the quiet moments following the debriefing, Maya observed her team. Some younger SEALs approached her hesitantly, asking technical questions. She answered with patience, never belittling them, yet always maintaining authority. Even those who had mocked her arrival now sought guidance. The subtle shift was undeniable. Doubt had begun to erode, replaced with tentative respect. Rudd, for his part, lingered at the edge of the group. He didn't speak, didn't offer advice, but his eyes followed her every move. Somewhere deep within, he acknowledged a truth he refused to voice. She was exceptional. Maya had faced his challenge not with confrontation, but with quiet competence, the kind that left no room for argument. As the afternoon sun began to wane, Maya walked along the perimeter, observing equipment, noting the layout of obstacles and mentally mapping potential scenarios for future exercises. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the intensity of the day. She had not sought recognition, nor had she demanded compliance. Yet by simply performing her role with precision, she had earned the team's attention and, more importantly, their trust. By the time she returned to her office, the subtle dynamics of the base had shifted. Conversations about her began to change, from skeptical whispers to cautious discussions of potential strategy and efficiency. Officers and enlisted personnel alike had begun to recognize that her arrival was not just a routine rotation. It was a potential turning point for the base itself. Maya sat at her desk, reviewing notes from the day. She reflected on the challenges she had encountered, the tests she had passed, and the subtle victories she had achieved. Skepticism still lingered, particularly from Rudd, whose pride prevented him from acknowledging her openly. But the foundation had been laid. Trust once earned would grow. Authority once demonstrated would command attention. As night fell over, the base settled into quiet routine. Lights glimmered across the compound, reflecting off the calm water of the nearby bay. Maya prepared for the next day, reviewing scenarios, memorizing drills, and analyzing personnel strengths and weaknesses. She knew the real test had only begun. The initial challenge had been met with success, but tomorrow would bring new trials, higher stakes, and more opportunities to prove that leadership was not about rank or jokes, but precision, integrity, and calm authority under pressure. Her first confrontation with true resistance had ended, but the silent tension that lingered with Rudd and some members of the SEAL team promised that the coming days would test her patience, her intellect, and her leadership in ways that would ultimately define her place at the base. Maya Torres had arrived quietly, yet her presence had begun to ripple through in ways no one could ignore. The tension was rising, and the story of her leadership was only beginning. The storm had been brewing for hours, dark clouds rolling across the horizon like a gathering army. Naval Base seemed to hold its breath as Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres reviewed the urgent alert on her tablet. 2 sailors were missing at sea after their small vessel had suffered engine failure during a routine patrol. The winds had already risen to 40 knots, and the waves were unpredictable, crashing violently against the rocky shoreline. The situation was dangerous, life-threatening, and yet Maya's expression remained calm, almost serene. She quickly assembled the team in the operations center. Chief Petty Officer Blake Rudd was there, arms crossed, jaw tight, his usual smirk replaced by visible tension. "This storm's worse than anything we trained for," he muttered, though his words seemed almost rehearsed, a mix of bravado and unease. Maya met his gaze evenly. "Extreme conditions are part of our duty, Chief. Hesitation could cost lives. We act now or we wait and risk everything." Her voice was steady, commanding, but never aggressive. Maya's first move was methodical. She coordinated the SEAL team, deck crew, and helicopter pilots with near-military precision. Each team member had a clearly defined role, each sequence planned down to the second. "Delta Team," she said, pointing to the SEALs preparing for water insertion, "prepare for immediate deployment. Alpha and Bravo teams maintain perimeter and secure zones for extraction. Rudd, you coordinate extraction from the air." Her calm efficiency silenced doubt. Even Rudd felt the weight of her authority. By the time the helicopter lifted off, the base was already tense. The rotors cut through the roaring wind as the aircraft struggled against gusts strong enough to buffet the fuselage. Maya's eyes scanned the water below, calculating, assessing, mentally running scenarios over and over. Every movement was deliberate, every order precise. She had trained for emergencies like this, but this wasn't a drill. Lives hung in the balance. The team arrived at the coordinates, but the sight below was worse than anticipated. The storm had overturned the vessel, leaving the sailors clinging desperately to the jagged hull, water crashing over them with every wave. Visibility was low, and the cold wind made it nearly impossible to maintain a steady grip on the controls. Maya didn't panic. She issued commands with calm clarity. "Insertion in 30 seconds. Delta Team, prepare lines. Alpha Team, perimeter watch. All units, maintain visual contact and radio silence unless necessary." The SEALs moved like clockwork. Rudd followed her instructions without hesitation, his own judgment temporarily set aside, replaced by trust in her command. Maya coordinated with the pilot, calculating exact drop points and timing the descent to avoid the highest waves. One misstep could mean disaster, but she handled every variable with sharp precision. Her leadership radiated calm authority, and the team responded instinctively. When the seals hit the water, it was chaotic. Waves slammed into them and the sailors' grip on the vessel was weakening. Maya directed the extraction with an almost surgical efficiency. Bravo team, secure the port side. Delta, stabilize the bow. Alpha, cover the blind spots. Her voice was steady over the wind, cutting through the noise like a lifeline. The SEALs followed every command perfectly, and the sailors were pulled to safety one by one. At one point, one sailor lost his grip, swept partially beneath the waves. Without hesitation, Maya directed the team to adjust positioning, deploying a rescue line while keeping the rest of the team secured. Within moments, the sailor was back in Delta Team's arms, shivering but alive. The storm raged on, but Maya's calm presence seemed to steady the chaos. Every decision was precise, every action intentional. The operation, while perilous, was under control. Rudd, usually quick with sarcastic remarks, stood silently, his gaze fixed on Maya. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that leadership was not about rank, jokes, or bravado. It was about decisiveness under pressure, clarity of thought, and the courage to act when hesitation could be fatal. Every sarcastic comment he had made earlier seemed meaningless now. She wasn't just competent, she was extraordinary. Minutes stretched as the team continued the extraction. The last sailor was secured, and Maya directed the helicopter back toward the base. She oversaw the landing, ensuring the injured were stabilized, checked by medics, and transported safely. Every detail, from the approach angle to the coordination of medical staff, was executed with flawless precision. The sailors' safety was ensured, and not a single mistake had been made, a remarkable achievement under such extreme conditions. Back at the base, monitors displayed the operation to the assembled personnel. Officers, enlisted members, and support staff watched in awe as Maya's calm authority guided the team through chaos. Whispers of disbelief turned into quiet admiration. Maya had not only succeeded where many would have hesitated, but she had done so with professionalism, skill, and composure that demanded respect. Rudd finally approached her once the mission concluded. "Lieutenant Commander, I don't know what to say," he admitted, voice low, almost awkward. You handled everything flawlessly. I didn't expect," his words faltered. Maya met his gaze evenly. "Chief, the only expectation was the team's safety. Decisions must be precise, actions deliberate. The results speak for themselves. That's all that matters." Rudd nodded, absorbing the lesson she had demonstrated without a single word of arrogance. The base itself seemed transformed. Personnel who had doubted her abilities now spoke in hushed tones of her leadership. Young officers sought her advice, SEALs nodded at her commands without hesitation, and even the veterans who had scoffed at her arrival began to acknowledge the quiet authority she carried. Maya had not demanded respect. She had earned it under the most challenging circumstances imaginable. As night fell and the storm receded, Maya stood at the edge of the base, looking out over the dark, turbulent waters. The rescue operation had proven more than her competence. It had demonstrated the value of calm, decisive leadership in the most extreme situations. The SEAL team had witnessed her abilities firsthand, and even Rudd's skepticism had been irrevocably altered. Maya allowed herself a quiet moment of reflection. She didn't smile, nor did she boast. The operation had been about more than recognition. It was about ensuring lives were saved and demonstrating the standard of excellence she expected in every aspect of her work. Leadership, she understood, was proven not through rank or ceremony, but through action, precision, and integrity, qualities she had just displayed in abundance. As she returned to her office to debrief the operation, Maya began to take notes for future drills and improvements. The turning point had been reached. The team now knew that her authority was not theoretical or ceremonial. It was practical, tested under fire, and indisputable. The base, which had greeted her arrival with doubt and whispered jokes, now faced a new reality. Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres was a leader who could be relied upon, even when the odds seemed impossible. By the end of the day, the storm had passed, but the ripple effects of Maya's leadership had just begun. Whispers of admiration were already spreading through the corridors, quiet respect replacing earlier mockery. Rudd, once the loudest voice of doubt, now watched from the sidelines, a mixture of reluctance and grudging respect in his expression. Maya's actions had not only saved lives but had set a precedent for excellence that could no longer be ignored. The turning point had arrived, not with fanfare but with precision, courage, and calm authority. Maya Torres had earned the trust of her team, the respect of her superiors, and the reluctant admiration of those who had once doubted her. And as the lights of the base glimmered against the fading storm clouds, one truth had become clear. Her arrival would change forever. The morning after the storm rescue, Naval Base hummed with a subdued energy. The storm had passed, leaving the bay littered with debris, sea foam, and the faint echo of chaos that had unfolded the night before. Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres walked through the base with measured steps, reviewing operational logs and crew reports. Her uniform was pristine, insignia gleaming, yet there was no hint of triumph in her expression. For Maya, the mission had been about more than recognition. It had been about lives saved, decisions made under pressure, and trust earned through action. The rescue had already begun to ripple through the base. Personnel whispered among themselves, recounting the details of the operation. The SEAL team's flawless coordination, the precision of helicopter insertions, and the calm authority with which Maya had directed every move had left a deep impression. Even officers who had been critical of her arrival were now revising their opinions, observing her actions through a lens of respect rather than skepticism. Rudd lingered near the operations center, leaning against a wall with arms crossed. He had watched the storm rescue unfold, and for the first time he felt a gnawing uncertainty about his own assumptions. Maya's calm decisiveness had stripped away his cynicism, exposing a truth he had been reluctant to acknowledge. She was competent, unflappable, and capable of leading under extreme conditions. The internal struggle was visible in his posture, a mixture of pride, disbelief, and reluctant admiration. In the aftermath, Maya convened a debriefing with the SEAL team. Each member recounted their perspective, highlighting both challenges and successes. Maya listened attentively, asking precise questions that clarified operational decisions and adjustments made in real time. She emphasized learning points rather than mistakes, creating an atmosphere of reflection rather than judgment. The team, initially skeptical of her presence, began to see her not only as an authority figure, but as a mentor whose guidance improved their performance and safety. The subtle shift in dynamics was apparent in small ways. SEALs sought her advice before making critical decisions. Junior officers consulted her for clarity during exercises, and even veteran personnel who had doubted her competence now deferred to her judgment without hesitation. Maya did not enforce this respect. She earned it through consistent action, precision, and the demonstration of calm authority under pressure. Rudd observed the changes quietly. The internal dialogue he carried was complex, pride in his own experience, a desire to maintain his position as a senior figure, and the undeniable truth of Maya's capability. He tested her subtly during training exercises, attempting to gauge whether her calm authority would waver under pressure or when challenged. Time and again, she passed, responding with composure and clear decision-making that left no room for doubt. During a routine morning drill, Rudd issued a challenge regarding team movement during a simulated boarding exercise. Maya listened, assessed the situation, and calmly redirected the team using a strategy that accounted for environmental factors, personnel strengths, and timing. The team executed flawlessly. Rudd's attempt at undermining her authority failed, leaving him to silently reconcile his previous assumptions with the reality before him. The base itself began to feel the ripple effects. Personnel adjusted to her leadership style, embracing clarity and precision over ceremony or personal assertion. Orders were followed without hesitation, decisions were made within established protocols, and communication across units improved significantly. Maya's influence was subtle but unmistakable. The culture was shifting toward operational excellence under her guidance. Even beyond formal exercises, the change in perception was evident in everyday routines. During briefings, personnel listened attentively, asking questions that demonstrated engagement rather than defiance. In the mess hall, conversations about the storm rescue became stories of admiration rather than gossip or skepticism. Maya's presence had redefined expectations of leadership at the base. By midweek, Rudd approached Maya privately, his tone subdued. "Lieutenant Commander, I've been reflecting on the rescue and the exercises. You handled everything flawlessly. I can't say I expected that." Maya regarded him calmly, her tone steady but gentle. "Chief, I do not expect belief or acknowledgement. I act to ensure the mission succeeds and the team returns safely. Respect follows naturally when results are evident." Rudd nodded slowly, the admission heavy with reluctant recognition. Throughout the week, Maya continued to lead with quiet authority. She implemented minor adjustments to training protocols based on lessons learned during the storm rescue, optimizing coordination, communication, and response times. Each adjustment reinforced her competence and further her emerging respect across the base. The SEAL team, once wary of her leadership, now anticipated her strategies and executed them with confidence. Even senior officers began taking notice. Reports of the successful storm rescue and the flawless execution of follow-up exercises were circulated up the chain of command. Praises were given in private briefings and documented in official logs. Maya's leadership was being recognized not for showmanship or charisma, but for tangible results that had improved operational readiness, safety, and cohesion. As the week drew to a close, the full impact of her leadership became undeniable. The team moved with unity, precision, and confidence. Orders were clear and executed without hesitation. Rudd, once a vocal skeptic, now followed her guidance implicitly, providing support rather than resistance. Maya had not demanded respect. She had earned it through consistent, courageous action and unwavering professionalism. That evening, as she reviewed the week's activities in her office, Maya reflected on the transformation taking place. The storm rescue had been the catalyst, but it was her ongoing demonstration of competence and calm authority that her position. Respect was not static. It was earned continuously, reinforced through actions and decisions that inspired trust. Rudd approached once more before leaving for the day. This time his tone was quieter, almost reverent. "Lieutenant Commander, I think the team finally understands. I do too. You've earned it, all of it." Maya nodded once, acknowledging his words without comment or fanfare. Leadership, she knew, was proven through action, not acknowledgement. Recognition, though appreciated, was secondary to the mission. By the weekend, the base had settled into a new rhythm. The storm was behind them, but its effects lingered. Maya's influence had reshaped interactions, strengthened the SEAL team's cohesion, and established her authority as both effective and respected. Personnel moved with confidence, juniors sought guidance, and skeptics had either adapted or quietly acknowledged her competence. The aftermath of the storm rescue was no longer measured only in saved lives, but in the subtle transformation of culture, attitude, and respect at Naval Base. Maya Torres had arrived under scrutiny and subtle mockery, yet through courage, precision, and calm authority, she had begun to earn the unwavering trust of her team. And in the quiet moments, Rudd's internal acknowledgement of her leadership served as a personal milestone. He had witnessed the storm, the flawless execution of high-stakes operations, and the subtle yet undeniable shift in respect across the base. He had tested her, doubted her, and resisted her authority, yet he could no longer deny the truth. Maya Torres was a leader whose competence, courage, and calm decisiveness had transformed Naval Base. The stage was set for what would follow: confrontations tempered by respect, high-profile operations executed flawlessly, and eventually, the formal recognition and ceremonial salute that would honor her as a true exemplar of leadership. The foundation had been laid in Part 5. The breaking point in Part 6 would cement it, leading to the final recognition and salutation of the entire base in Part 8. Maya Torres, reviewing the week's progress from the observation deck, understood the truth that guided her every decision. Leadership was not about ego, rank, or approval. It was about action, clarity, and trust. The storm had tested her. The aftermath had proven her. And the respect emerging quietly, steadily across would carry her forward into every mission, every exercise, and every challenge yet to come. The morning sun had barely crested the horizon over Naval Base, but the tension inside the operations center was already palpable. Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres moved through the room with her usual calm precision, reviewing mission logs and schedules, noting subtle changes in team efficiency since the stormy rescue operation. The SEAL team had shifted, almost imperceptibly at first, but noticeably now, obedience and trust were replacing hesitation. Chief Petty Officer Blake Rudd lingered near the doorway, arms crossed, jaw tight. The storm rescue had stripped him of excuses. His open skepticism had been tested and found lacking. Yet his pride, honed over decades of service, resisted acknowledgement. He couldn't simply say aloud that she had proven herself. He attempted to brush it off with sarcasm, though the edge was gone. "Lieutenant Commander," Rudd started, his voice hesitant, betraying his internal struggle, "why do you act like none of this matters to you?" It was a loaded question, meant to unsettle her, but Maya met his gaze evenly, unflinching. She didn't need theatrics or bravado to assert authority. Her calm composure itself was a statement. "Respect isn't claimed, Chief," Maya replied, her voice measured and precise. "It is earned through action, decision-making, and consistency under pressure. Authority isn't about rank or ceremony, it's about results, and results have no need for posturing." Every word landed with clarity. It was not a lecture, it was a statement of principle. Rudd's brow furrowed. He had trained under some of the Navy's most decorated officers, men who valued aggression, boldness, and dominance. Maya's approach quiet, analytical, and precise, his understanding of leadership. He had expected loud commands, flashy demonstrations of authority, maybe even mistakes she might make under stress. There had been none, not a single error. Every action she took reinforced her competence. You mean that storm mission?" he asked, attempting to minimize her achievement as if it could somehow be diminished. Maya shook her head, maintaining her calm composure. "It wasn't a mission to prove anything to you. It was to save lives. What you witnessed was a demonstration of leadership under extreme conditions. Decisions made under stress are not personal, they are operational." For a moment, Rudd remained silent, caught between pride and the undeniable truth. The base had changed since the storm. Personnel who had once whispered doubts now approached Maya with questions, sought guidance, and implemented her suggestions without hesitation. Even senior officers took note of her leadership. Rudd's attempts at sarcasm or dismissal no longer carried weight. He couldn't argue with tangible results. Finally, he spoke, his voice quieter, more reflective. "I trained under Lieutenant Commander Hayes' mentor years ago," he said, referencing Maya's own lineage of leadership. "He spoke highly of you, but I didn't expect," his words trailed off. For the first time, he admitted a crack in his armor of skepticism. Maya listened, silent but attentive, allowing him the space to confront his own pride. "You underestimated me," she said calmly, without anger or gloating. "That is natural, many do, but I didn't arrive here to be underestimated nor to defend my record. My focus is on the mission, the team, and the base. Respect is not demanded, it is earned through action." Her words were precise, unshakable, and undeniable. Rudd exhaled slowly, tension leaving his shoulders in the form of reluctant acceptance. "I see that now," he admitted. I misjudged you. I was expecting theatrics, mistakes, something I could dismiss. You were flawless." He paused, the weight of acknowledgement heavy in the room. "It's different from what I expected." Maya nodded once. "Good. Now let's ensure the team continues to operate at peak efficiency. Lessons learned from the storm rescue and recent drills should inform every mission moving forward. That is all that matters." She returned to her review of operational logs, leaving no room for argument or debate. Her authority was no longer theoretical. It had been tested, proven, and recognized. The atmosphere in the operations center shifted subtly but unmistakably. Other officers and SEALs who had been present in the room began to recognize the moment of transformation. Respect had replaced doubt, obedience had replaced hesitation, and trust had replaced skepticism. Maya's calm and precise authority had demonstrated that leadership was not about rank alone, but about integrity, clarity, and courage under pressure. For Rudd, the internal conflict persisted, though the outward tension eased. He had always valued experience and aggression, yet he now understood that leadership could also be quiet, analytical, and measured, qualities he had once dismissed. Maya Torres had challenged his assumptions and forced him to reconsider the meaning of authority. In doing so, she had redefined what leadership could look like on the base. Later that day, Maya conducted a follow-up drill with the SEAL team. The difference was palpable. Team members moved with confidence, anticipating her instructions and executing them flawlessly. Rudd participated without hesitation, following her guidance precisely. There were no jokes, no challenges, only the silent acknowledgement that she had earned their trust. Every decision, every command was met with compliance and respect, not because it was demanded, but because it had proven effective. By evening, Maya reviewed the day's outcomes in her office. She noted the changes in team behavior, the efficiency gains, and the improved coordination between units. The storm rescue had been the catalyst, but it was her consistent demonstration of competence, calmness, and precision that her authority. She understood that leadership was not static. It was continuously tested and reinforced through actions, decisions, and the results they produced. Rudd approached her office one final time before nightfall. "Lieutenant Commander," he said quietly, "I just wanted to acknowledge everything you've done. You've earned it every bit." Maya met his gaze, her expression calm but firm. "Thank you, Chief. Remember, it's not about me. It's about the team, the mission, and the base. That is the measure of leadership." Rudd nodded, the tension finally dissipating. He returned to his quarters, a new understanding settling in. Maya Torres had not only passed the storm's test, she had rewritten the expectations for what it meant to lead at Naval Base. Her authority was no longer questioned. It was observed, respected, and quietly admired. As night fell and the base lights shimmered against the calm post-storm waters, Maya stood on the observation deck. She looked out across the bay, reflecting on the day's lessons. The breaking point had arrived, not with confrontation or arrogance, but with precision, courage, and unwavering focus. She had earned not just compliance, but trust, the highest form of respect a leader could receive. The base, which had once welcomed her arrival with whispered jokes and subtle skepticism, now acknowledged her quietly but unmistakably. Even Rudd, once her most vocal critic, had been forced to recognize her competence and leadership. Maya's calm authority had transformed the culture of the SEAL team and set a standard that could not be ignored. The storm was over, but the impact remained. Lives had been saved, respect had been earned, and the subtle shift in authority had Maya Torres' place at Naval Base. The breaking point had passed, and in its wake, a foundation for trust, efficiency, and excellence had been firmly established. Maya Torres, standing alone on the observation deck, understood the truth of leadership more clearly than ever. It was not the loudest voice that commanded respect, but the one whose actions proved competence when it mattered most. And today, she had proven herself in every possible way. The sun rose over Naval Base, painting the hangars and training yards in a sharp golden light. Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres walked through the compound with her usual quiet confidence, but today was different. Today, she would lead a high-profile joint exercise involving multiple units, SEALs, aviation, logistics, and command staff. An operation designed to simulate a coordinated response to a potential maritime threat. For many, it was a test of efficiency. For Maya, it was an opportunity to demonstrate the enduring impact of her leadership. The base had changed subtly in the weeks since the storm rescue. Whispers of respect had replaced jokes, and even the most skeptical personnel now deferred to her judgment. Yet Maya's eyes observed with the same analytical intensity as always. Every team member's readiness, every piece of equipment, Every procedural nuance was mentally cataloged before the exercise began. She understood that trust had to be reinforced continuously. Yesterday's success did not guarantee today's compliance. Chief Petty Officer Blake Rudd approached her as she reviewed operational maps in the planning room. "Lieutenant Commander," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of admiration and lingering pride, "this operation, it's complex. I've led missions like this before, but your planning, it's different. Detailed, precise. It's impressive." Maya gave him a measured nod. "Rudd, your experience is invaluable. Follow the plan, but adapt only where conditions demand. Focus on the team. That is the mission." The exercise began in the early morning haze. Helicopters roared overhead as SEALs deployed into the simulated threat zone, while ground and deck teams coordinated to secure strategic points. Maya's commands were precise, each timed perfectly to ensure coordination across multiple units. Observers from higher command watched closely, noting her calm, deliberate style and the seamless execution of the operation. Within minutes, the first unexpected variable emerged. A simulated enemy vessel moved off course, testing the team's flexibility under pressure. Most leaders might have reacted with urgency or tension, but Maya remained composed. "Adjust approach angle by 15 degrees, she directed over comms. "Delta and Bravo teams synchronize with Alpha immediately. Maintain perimeter coverage." Her voice was calm but commanding. The teams adapted flawlessly, executing the revised strategy without hesitation. The exercise intensified. Explosions simulated threats, communication signals fluctuated, and time-sensitive objectives added pressure. Maya's guidance was not rigid, it was adaptive. She allowed junior officers to make decisions within defined parameters, correcting missteps with precise, unobtrusive direction. Each adjustment reinforced her authority, not through assertion, but through demonstrable competence. Rudd, who had once openly mocked her arrival, now operated with complete trust. He relayed instructions efficiently, aligned his team with Maya's plan, and executed maneuvers flawlessly. The tension that had once defined their interactions had disappeared, replaced with professional collaboration. Even the most seasoned SEALs noted the shift. Maya's leadership was not optional, it was essential. Halfway through the exercise, a critical scenario unfolded, a simulated hostage extraction under heavy fire. The hostages were strategically placed in a vessel partially obscured by smoke and fog. Timing and coordination were crucial. Any delay could endanger lives. Maya directed teams with laser precision. Alpha, cover the rear approach. Bravo, secure the port side. Delta, extraction in 30 seconds. Maintain visual contact, adjust for environmental factors. The teams executed flawlessly, following her lead through every obstacle. One junior officer hesitated for a split second during a complex maneuver. Maya's voice cut through the comms, calm but firm. "Adjust positioning now. Cover angle 32. Execute immediately." The officer corrected the movement, and the operation proceeded without further delay. Observers noted the seamless integration of human decision-making with structured command, a hallmark of exceptional leadership. By late morning, the exercise reached its climax, neutralizing the simulated threat and securing all objectives. Every unit had performed with near-perfect synchronization. Maya's planning, combined with her calm authority and real-time adjustments, had transformed a potentially chaotic operation into a demonstration of precision, efficiency, and cohesion. The aftermath was immediate and tangible. Officers and enlisted personnel approached her, offering congratulations and expressing newfound respect. "Lieutenant Commander," one senior officer said, "your execution today was exemplary. The coordination across units, I've never seen anything like it." Maya acknowledged the compliment with a nod, her expression composed. "Focus on the team's performance. That is the measure of success." Rudd approached, his usual stoicism tempered with genuine admiration. "Ma'am, I can't even begin to express how effective you were. I've trained for years, but watching the team operate under your direction, it's incredible." Maya met his gaze evenly. "Chief, effectiveness is not personal, it is operational. Today proved the team can execute flawlessly when trust, clarity, and coordination align. That is all that matters. News of the successful high-profile exercise quickly spread through the base. Personnel who had been skeptical weeks ago now openly acknowledged her leadership. Junior officers sought her guidance, while senior command began reviewing operational reports that highlighted her strategic foresight and composure under pressure. Even those who had been indifferent now viewed her as a standard-bearer of excellence. By evening, Maya convened a debriefing session. She walked through the exercise step by step, analyzing decisions, identifying minor inefficiencies, and reinforcing lessons learned. Her approach was methodical, educational, and inclusive. The team absorbed her feedback without resistance, recognizing her expertise and valuing her guidance. Rudd, seated at the front, silently nodded along, fully aware that she had not only met but exceeded every expectation. As the day ended, Maya stood once more on the observation deck, watching the sunset over the bay. The high-profile operation had been more than a test of skill. It had been a demonstration of what could be achieved when leadership was rooted in precision, calm authority, and trust. She understood that respect, once earned, needed continual reinforcement. Every operation, every interaction, every decision was an opportunity to solidify that foundation. The base had changed. The SEAL team moved with confidence, officers deferred to her guidance without hesitation, and even Rudd's skepticism had transformed into silent acknowledgement. Maya Torres had not only proven her competence, she had inspired the team to elevate their performance. The ripple effects of her leadership would continue, shaping the culture of Naval Base for years to come. And yet Maya remained grounded. She did not seek accolades, only the quiet satisfaction of a mission well executed and a team operating at its best. Leadership, she knew, was not about personal recognition but about results, trust, and the unwavering ability to act decisively when it mattered most. That night, as lights shimmered across the base and personnel reflected on the day's achievements, Maya prepared for the next challenge, aware that leadership was a continuous journey. The seeds of respect had grown into recognition, and the base had embraced her authority not through intimidation or rank, but through demonstrated competence and courage. Maya Torres had earned her place at. The foundation was solid, and tomorrow, when another challenge arose, the team would follow her without hesitation, because they knew, without question, that she had proven herself in every possible way. The morning sun rose over Naval Base like a promise, spilling golden light across the tarmac and reflecting off the calm waters of the bay. Today was different. Today, the base was gathered for a formal ceremony, a recognition not only of operational excellence but of leadership that had transformed the culture of the base. Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres walked through the compound, her uniform immaculate, her insignia gleaming, her expression composed yet quietly determined. She knew what this day represented, a culmination of weeks of challenges, tests, and moments that had demanded courage, precision, and calm authority. Personnel from every division were assembled in neat formation, standing at attention, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Whispered conversations floated through the crowd, officers discussing the rescue at sea, SEALs recalling drills executed under her command, and even senior command remarking on her unwavering composure during high-profile exercises. Chief Petty Officer Blake Rudd stood in the front row, a silent witness to the moment, the subtle tension of pride and reluctant admiration visible in his posture. The base commander approached the podium, clearing his throat. "Personnel of Naval Base," he began, his voice carrying across the assembled ranks. "Today we recognize an officer whose leadership, composure, and dedication have set a standard for us all. Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres arrived weeks ago under scrutiny and skepticism, but through her actions, she has earned not only respect but trust, the highest form of recognition a leader can receive." A ripple of acknowledgement moved through the ranks. Maya stood at attention, composed, silent, letting the moment unfold. She did not seek accolades, but she understood their weight. This ceremony was not about personal pride. It was about demonstrating that leadership was earned through action, courage, and integrity. The commander continued, recounting the storm rescue that had transformed perception across the base. He detailed the dangerous conditions at sea, the precise coordination of the SEAL team under Maya's command, and the flawless execution that had ensured the safety of every sailor. Even the minor missteps that might have been fatal in lesser hands had been corrected with calm authority and precision. The base had witnessed leadership in its form, and recognition was now due. When he finished, the commander gestured toward Maya. "Lieutenant Commander Torres, on behalf of Naval Base, we salute your dedication, your courage, and your unwavering leadership. The base honors you today for setting a standard to which all officers and enlisted personnel can aspire." The wind seemed to still as the base shifted into a formal salute. Every officer, every SEAL, every member of the personnel, hundreds strong, turned, standing perfectly aligned, hands raised in crisp, uniform precision. Maya's name echoed across the compound, carried not by loud announcements or exaggeration, but by disciplined recognition from those who had seen her actions firsthand. Rudd's eyes, usually so guarded, reflected a quiet pride as he followed the salute. He stepped forward slightly, his posture rigid yet respectful, his earlier skepticism replaced with unequivocal admiration. The moment was no longer about his pride or reluctance. It was about honoring leadership that had been earned through courage, competence, and integrity. Maya returned the salute, her expression calm, eyes scanning the ranks. There was no arrogance, no desire for personal acknowledgement, only a quiet acknowledgement that the respect of those she led was the true measure of success. Every member of the base who had doubted her, challenged her, or even mocked her presence now participated in this ceremonial recognition. The transformation was complete. As the salute concluded, the base erupted in respectful applause. Officers and enlisted personnel alike began to approach, offering congratulations, nods of respect, and subtle acknowledgments of her leadership. Junior SEALs expressed gratitude for her guidance, senior officers commented on the clarity and decisiveness of her actions, and Rudd, standing slightly apart, finally allowed himself a quiet smile. "Ma'am, you've earned this," he said, his voice low but sincere. Maya inclined her head slightly, accepting the acknowledgement without overt display. "Thank you, Chief," she replied, her tone steady and composed. "The recognition belongs to the team, the mission, and the base. Leadership is only as strong as those who follow it with trust and precision." The ceremony continued with the reading of commendations, noting not only her storm rescue, but also the flawless execution of high-profile exercises and the subtle yet transformative influence she had on the SEAL team. The commander emphasized that her leadership had improved operational efficiency, team cohesion, and morale across the base. Maya's impact, though quiet and measured, had been profound. After the formalities, the base personnel gathered more informally, sharing stories of recent operations, exercises, and drills under Maya's guidance. Laughter, camaraderie, and a sense of unity filled the air, a stark contrast to the initial skepticism and whispered jokes that had greeted her arrival weeks before. The atmosphere was one of mutual respect, shared achievement, and collective pride. Rudd, now fully reconciled with his earlier misjudgment, stood beside Maya for a moment. "I have to admit," he said quietly, almost to himself, "I didn't think anyone could lead like that, not without arrogance, not without mistakes, but you've proven that leadership is more than rank or ceremony. It's presence, clarity, and courage." Maya offered a small nod, acknowledging his words. "Leadership is action, Chief. Recognition is a reflection of results, not ego." The day wound down with the team conducting a final, celebratory drill, not as a test, but as a demonstration of cohesion and respect. Maya watched, silent but attentive, as her teams executed flawlessly. She had arrived to skepticism and subtle mockery. She was leaving with trust, respect, and admiration earned not through words but through deeds. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the base, Maya stood once more on the observation deck. She reflected on the journey, the initial doubts, the storm rescue, the tense confrontations with Rudd, the high-profile exercises, and now, the formal recognition. Each moment had reinforced one truth. Leadership was proven in action through trust and honored by those who witnessed it firsthand. The base was forever changed. The SEAL team moved with confidence, junior officers sought guidance without hesitation, and even seasoned veterans who had questioned her arrival now deferred to her judgment. Maya Torres had not only led, she had inspired. She had earned her place, not through title alone, but through courage, precision, and integrity. Finally, as the lights of the base flickered on against the darkening sky, a profound quiet settled over. The ceremonial salute had ended, but its significance lingered. Maya Torres had faced doubt, danger, and skepticism, and emerged not only victorious but respected, the embodiment of leadership in its form. And somewhere on the tarmac, Chief Petty Officer Rudd adjusted his posture, a private smile tugging at his lips. He had witnessed leadership tested and proven, and he knew that Maya Torres would forever set the standard at Naval Base. The base, the team, and the lives she had touched bore testament to her unwavering authority, her calm courage, and her indelible impact. The story had come full circle. The officer who arrived to jokes and doubt now stood at the center of respect, recognition, and admiration. Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres had earned her place, not by words, but by action. And as the stars emerged above the base settled into quiet pride, forever transformed by the leadership of one extraordinary woman.